आपको बता दें कि
हेलो हेलो okay.
हेलो
गुड मॉर्निंग भाई।
गुड मॉर्निंग तुम
हाउ आर
कैसे?
यू?
आवाज नहीं आ रही थी तो
हाउ आर यू?
और सुनाओ।
ठीक है।
ठीक है, शैल वी स्टार्ट?
Yeah, yeah, of course. Please go ahead.
We will invite.
Oh, she will invite you formally for a minute.
Good morning, everybody. Am I audible to everyone?
या
All right, we begin with. Sorry, there's a technical glitch.
Here.
Am I audible now?
या
Am I audible, everyone? All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the 5th day of the 5-day international workshop on research methodology in social sciences. For the first session of the day, we have with us Dr. Jagdish Ajwani. Professor Dr. J.C. Advani is an international counselor and a motivational speaker and former professor at Government Arts and Commerce Girls College, Raipur, Chhattisgarh, India. He completed his PhD from Pandit Ravi Shankar Shukla University, Raipur in 1979 and DLit from the Hindi University of America, Florida, USA in 2014. He has published 75 papers in reputable national and international journals for articles in books and over 100 paper presentations in various national and international seminars. He has been invited as a chair and resource person in various workshops, seminars, and conferences, has guided 29 PhD scholars so far, and constructed more than 40 psychological tests and developed 4 training programs, and has been contributing in various projects and has been an editor in various journals as well. I now request Sir to start with session on scale development and validation, conceptualization, item generation, item analysis, pilot testing, revision, and refinement. Please, sir.
Thank you. Good morning to everybody. It's very
Good morning.
pleasure for me to interact with you esteemed people. The thing is that uh, the test construction, though everybody wish that they shall have at least a test on their name, it is, and we have been taught since we were in graduation, then post-graduation, about the test construction. But the details of test constructions are quite misleading to the novice, because the textbooks, they don't provide that much detail as it is required for a student to understand, or a future scholar, if he or she wants to develop a test. Certainly, most of you must be pursuing or loving to pursue the course of PhD, and in that you may confront test construction procedure. You may need, because it's a time now to deal with some new concepts, and psychology is such a versatile subject that it invites every novel thing. Test construction process, just a minute, for a second, you just wait. My slide is not moving. Let me take the help, and as I'm not a techno expert, I'm just taking the help and to move the slides. Just wait for a second. Gullu? Pooja? बोला बोला जल्दी स्लाइड मूव नहीं हो रही Now, I'm sorry for this interference. As I told you that I'm not a techno expert and I need help for all those things. There are some steps for skill development and its validation. And it starts from defining the test, selecting a skill method, constructing the items, testing the items, revising the items, and last, publishing the test. This last step is not our present scope anyway. We are dealing with test construction process. By way of preview, we can just let me go through a preview about test construction process for which we are going to deal in detail. Defining the test consists of the known before the developer can proceed to test construction. Every test developer shall have this insight in his mind that what he or she is going to assess and what it mean of it. What is the scope and the purpose of the test? This is the the first stair to climb up the final construction of the test. A test which has not been defining its purpose may fail to serve its purpose. So, first is that defining the test, we shall take care of that. It shall be as precise as possible. Second is selecting a scale method, which is the process of setting the rules by which numbers are assigned to test results. This is very important, where I have been assigned my duty to deal with the scaling methods. So selecting a scaling method is the process of setting the rules by which numbers are assigned to the test result. Once we selected the items, the important question is that how we are going to give the scores to the test responses. And there are certain rules for different scales, and we must know that how we are going to assign the test results. The next comes constructing the items in as much as science. Actually, constructing the item is as much as the science, and it is here the creativity of the test developer may be required. Created in the sense that there are numerous number of the tests available in the present cycle. Almost testing is entering to the second century of its onset. And we have enough number of tests almost in all the dimension of the psychological testing. So a new test must serve some purpose, shall have some items which are quite novel, and for that, creativity of the test developer is required. Once a preliminary version of the test is available, the developer usually administer it to a large, modest size sample of respondents in order to collect initial data about test item characteristics. Before going to the item analysis, it is a very prime aspect that we shall have a preliminary version of the test. Before we get a final version of the test, we have to work all statistical analysis, say item analysis, in regard to validity and the reliability and its difficulty and its discriminativity. We administer a larger number of the respondents so that we can get some initial data about the test item characteristics. Now, coming to the test construction process, testing the item entails a variety of statistical process. Now we are dealing with, I'm talking about another step, that is item analysis. Testing the items entails a variety of statistical process referred to collectively known as item analysis. The purpose of item analysis is to determine which item is be retained, which be revised, and which be rejected. What I mean to say that we have an initial preliminary draft, and maybe we'll just discuss later on. Almost double of the items which we require in the final draft, we collect double number of the test items, and then they let go through the item analysis, which we'll discuss very soon. And on the basis of the results of the item analysis, some items will be retained, some may require revision, and some may be rejected and thrown out. Now, based on item analysis and other sources of information, the test is then revised. This is the revision of the test, because we see that there are some items are need to rephrase, some need to be rejected. So we are getting a shrink test items, and this test item to be again revised on a different sample. And if the revision is substantial, new items and additional pre-testing with new respondents may require. As I told just now, sometimes it happened that we collected with all good efforts, good intention, the various items, but the item analysis results does not go in our favor, and we find that lots of the test items are at the verge of rejection, and it does not fulfill the requirement of the test itself, the minimum test items which we require to incorporate in a test. Then it is very natural that we shall add new test items, and again we shall go back to the additional pre-testing as we did earlier. With now it's question that not with the same respondents but with the new respondents. Thus, test construction involves a feedback loop whereby second, third, and fourth drafts of the instrument might be produced. So don't feel harassed. Don't feel frustrated if we find that lots of the number tests prepared, collected, been proven for the rejection. So we can go for the second. If second is not satisfying the criteria, then we go for the third, and then again for the fourth draft. Until we find the sufficient required number of items after the complete criteria done through the item analysis. Publishing the test is the final step. That is, in addition to releasing the test material, the developer must produce a user-friendly manual, test manual, so that the examinee can find, or the test administrator can find relevant informations which is required before the administration, during the administration, and after the administration. In order to construct a new test, defining the test, the first step, defining the test. In order to construct a new test, the developer must have a class idea of what the test is to measure and how it is different from existing instruments. That's why just I said it, that there are lots of existing instruments in the same area where we may be working. Then we must justify what is the need of new instrument. And once we are able to justify the requirement of the new instrument, then we must go through defining it in a different perspective. Kaufman and Kaufman, a new, very known persons, psychologists, who developed the Kaufman assessment battery for children. When they introduced this, lots of the test batteries, Binet and so many others were in the market. The Kaufman and Kaufman, while preparing this thing, while asserting its purpose, they listed 6 primary goals that define the purpose of the test and distinguish it from existing measure. We shall take precaution. That's simply in a enthusiasm or in the aspiration, we plan to construct a test, but we find that lots of the tests are there and our test is not showing any novelty. Then there is no fun. We can use, because they have already gone through the very painful process of test construction. So we need not to go through those pain again if we want to introduce a similar sort. So let we have something extra, something novel. Though the point of the assessment may be the same, that is here in case of Kaufman and Kaufman, it is intelligence. On the basis of this purpose, Kaufman and Kaufman have given us some distinguished characteristics of a new test. Selecting a scaling method, the immediate purpose of the psychologist to responses on a test, the examinee can be judged to have more or less the characteristics measure. This is the first. The rules by which numbers are assigned to responses define the scaling method. Test developers select a scaling method that is optimally suited to the manner in which they have conceptualized the traits measured by their test. There are so many distinctive scaling methods available to the psychometricians. However, before reviewing selected scaling method, there is a need to understand related concept, that is level of measurement, so that we can better appreciate the differences between scaling methods. I'm sorry, the slide missed twice, skid twice. I was talking about the Kaufman's, and Kaufman's says that the test shall measure intelligence from a strong theoretical and research basis. Separate acquired factual knowledge and to solve the unfamiliar problems. It lists scores that translate to education and other areas. Include novel tasks. Be easy to administer and objective to score. Be sensitive to the diverse needs of preschool, minority groups, and etc. These 6 characteristics Kaufman and Kaufman proposed while they were preparing a new test, when already there were lots of the tests of measuring intelligence, even for the children, he emphasized. And I don't think that it requires any more clarification because itself is very clear. Now, the first step for constructing the test is the immediate purpose. The immediate purpose of psychological testing is to assign numbers to responses on a test. As we have just gone through it, the rules by which numbers are assigned to responses define the scaling method. Test developers select a scaling method that is optimally suited to the manners in which they are conceptualized. The traits measured by their test. So there are so many distinctive scaling methods available to psychometricians. However, before reviewing selecting scaling methods, there is a need to understand related concept. And the first concept is level of measurement. Oh, why this? Just levels of measurement. Stevens in 1946 has described 4 types of levels of measurement. Because why I'm telling this thing? Because it is very necessary for constructing any scale or test, that what level we are going to measure, how we are going to measure, how actually the importance of any assessment tool is giving the number to the responses. How we'll give, that depends upon the level of measurement we are opting. Different tests require different level of measurement. First is at very rudimentary level is a nominal scale, where the numbers are not having the any numerical value, just they are for the naming sake. And just like that, if we in psychology we know that if we have 4 groups, 1 control and 3 experimental, then we say group number 1, group number 2, group number 3, and group number 4. These numbers 1, 2, 3, 4 are not having any numerical value. They don't run on any continuum. So they don't, the numbers, they don't carry the value of the number. It's simply for the naming sake. There may be some situations where we require to categorize the people into 2 groups, male, female, or control, experimental, then we use these numbers. A better scale where the number have got certain values, that is an ordinal scale. Ordinal, it indicates the order. Order means sequence. And we know that method of ranking, Spearman method of rank difference correlation, where we used to calculate on this data. And here the respondents are asked to rank. Suppose I want to buy a car. Now I have got some 4 options, X, Y, Z, A. Four options are there. And I'm inquiring from the market, doing survey, and getting the credits of the value of the cars. And finally, I find that this one, which is the number 1 car, number 2 car, number 3 car, number 4 car. Number 1 indicates the best, and number last indicates the worst. Insofar the preference is concerned, so far the rank is concerned. So it is clear, and that number 1 is indicative of that. But we can't say here that number 1 is as much better than 2 as 2 is better than 3. Third rank. There may be difference in the intervals. One may be 10% better, another may be 30% poorer. So this scale, ranking scale, again, if it's a call about arithmetic value, so they don't we cannot apply any arithmetic instrumentations, that is plus, minus, multiplication, division. We cannot apply that thing. We simply can order it. And in psychology, we have, just I told that, we have rank difference correlation coefficient, which we can apply. And there are some other statistics also, which are based on the ranks. So this scale does not able to provide information about the relative strength of the ranking. That is, how much 1 is better than 2, and how much 2 is better than 3, and how much 3 is better than 2. There is no idea about that. So this is an ordinal scale, and a better scale, which is known as interval scale. And in this interval scale, where the deficiency of the earlier two, that is nominal and ordinal, has been removed, and it provides information about ranking, but also supplies a metric for gaining the differences between rankings. This actually sometimes it is called equal interval scale, and equal interval scale shows that the number, what is the distance or difference between number 1 and number 2 is equal to 2 and 3, 3 and 4, and so on. We know the clinical thermometer. It starts from 96 and goes about 100, 400, 5, 6, what it may be. Now, the difference between 96 and 97 temperature is equal to difference between 102 and 103 temperature. We can apply plus and minus arithmetic functions, but not the division and multiplication, because the absence of the true zero here. True zero means, suppose we are measuring temperature. So if the clinical thermometer shows lesser than 96, it does not mean that the temperature is 0. But of course, we can say a person who is, if his temperature is measured and his temperature is 104 and another person's temperature is 102. So we can say that the first one is having 2-degree temperature more, and the later one is having 2-degree temperature lesser than the first one. But we cannot say that he is having double temperature, then, or he is having half temperature. That cannot mean. That means multiplication and divisions are not possible. So the scaling may be attribute in interval scale from 1 to 100, or 1 to 10, or 1 to 7, or 1 to 5, or 1 to 3. We'll find some findings there when we are discussing about the Thurston and Likkert's method of scaling. Let's here we ended. The two things are important, which is not in earlier scale, that is equal interval scale. So we have two mathematical functions applicable here, but because of the absence of the zero, true zero, we cannot develop a ratio. We cannot say half, or we cannot say double. So for that ratio, establishing radio, we need a true zero, which is not available in this interval scale. Coincidentally, most of the psychological tests, most of them, except who are dealing with some physical attributes, the psychologists are dealing with this interval scale, because suppose we are developing a test of intelligence, and you can see that in co-blocks or in culture fair, and that a person a testee may score 0. The 0 does not mean the lack of intelligence. That's not possible. Or any psychological attribute, if score is 0, it does not mean the absence of that attribute. We need to understand that there's no possibility of absence of any psychological attribute in any person. So for that, we need to rest on the interval scale to prepare psychological tests or scales. The next is ratio scale. The ratio scale, it involves further refinement and that it has all the qualities of interval scale, but also possess conceptually meaningful 0 point, in which there is a total abscess of the characteristics being measured. The essential characteristics of the 4 levels of measurements are summarized in the following figure. Here we see that in almost all physical measures have ratio scale. Say, length of a cloth is 1 meter. If we cut into 2 pieces, then each piece is having half of the size of the earlier cloth. We can say that the half is, the full cloth is the double size than the 1/2 of the size. Because we have a true 0, there is no cloth. Similarly, we can say that if person is weighing 40 kg, another person is weighing 80 kg. We can say that the second person is 40 kg more than the earlier, but we have a ratio because 0 kg weight is also possible. So we can also say that the later person is twice heavier than the earlier one, or the earlier one is half of the earlier, half of the second later person. This is all possible only when the true 0, possibility of true 0 is there. So here this figure is sorting out the characteristics of these 4 levels. As you see, nominal scale only allows categorization or naming. Ordinal allows for categorization allows to ranking. Interval, it permits all the 3, earlier 2 and the plus 1, that is allows for categorization, allows to ranking, and uses equal intervals. And lastly is the ratio scale, which provides information about all the characteristics. That is, it allows for categorization, allows for ranking, uses equal interval, as well as possess real 0 point. I hope these things are clear. You need to understand these levels of measurement before constructing any test, because you will require what level of measurement you are going to apply for your test. Ratio scales are very rare in psychological scenario. It is very unmeaningful to say that somebody is lacking or he is having 0 of attribute being measured in the psychology. Levels of measurements are relevant to test construction because the more powerful and useful parametric statistics procedures like Pearson's or ANOVA multiple regression should be used only for scores derived from measures that meet the criteria of interval or ratio scale. So suppose you are preparing a scale which has only ranks, then you cannot apply this high order of statistics. For applying that thing, which is much needed in the research, we need to go for the higher level of measurement, that is interval or ratio scale. For scales that are only nominal or ordinal, less powerful non-parametric statistics like chi-square, rank order correlation, median test must be applied. And this is not the scope of the present discussion, so I'm ending this here only. Now, let me talk about the representative scales. scaling methods. Before at test construction, we must know what are the important scaling methods. There are very high number of scaling methods, which is not practically feasible to describe all those things. But most of the books, known referral books, they prescribe certain representative scaling method. And among that, first is the expert ranking. As the name is clear, here we ask an expert or some experts to rank the behavior. For example, suppose we wanted to know the depth of the coma in patients who had suffered a recent head injury that rendered them unconscious. In Corona time, if you remember, lots of patients gone into coma. And maximum of them died because it was practically difficult for assessing the level of the coma, depth of the coma. A depth scale, depth of coma scale, here it could have been proved helpful in predicting the course of improvement, because it is well known that a lengthy period of unconsciousness offers a poor prognosis of ultimate recovery. I know during the monitoring of this patients who had gone in coma, it was very important for the doctors to understand the depth of the coma so that they can understand the improvement or deterioration in the patient's condition, because they were in coma, unconscious, though it was not anyway describable by the patient himself. It was the only doctor who could understand what is going on, and they had certain measures and through which that scale is developed. In addition, rehabilitation personnel have a practical need to know whether a patient is deeply comatose or in a partial communicative state of twilight consciousness. We have with this coma scale, depth of coma scale, we can understand by observing the behavior, we can understand whether he is in deep coma or he has a, just like tube light flickers sometimes before lighting itself fully. So they are at the verge of the consciousness, but still they are having some characteristics of the unconsciousness. So understand and treatment rehabilitations are made available accordingly. One approach to scaling the depth of coma would be to rely on the behavioral rankings of experts. Now here, as we are talking about the expert ranking, so here we are describing why we need that. To understand that, we need behavioral ranking of experts. For example, we could ask a panel of neurologists to list patients' behaviors associated with different levels of unconsciousness. We can ask as many as experts, neurologists. Experts means here, I'm meaning to say that it is neurologists who are dealing with this coma and all those things. Neurologists are sometimes some medical experts also about the behavior of the patient who is in the condition of unconsciousness or in the coma. After sorting out the examples, or say the items or the behavior associated with the differential level of unconsciousness, we go to the next step, and that is we sort out these experts submits a list of large diagnostic behavior. They may say that if a person is unconscious, so regarding his eye, regarding his speech, regarding his motor activities, what are the criteria being considered important by the neurologists? They are being collected from that if there is no eye movement, none, then we can say that the patient is in deep coma. If he's responding and opening his eyes when being asked, so that is here is near to the consciousness. So the indicators behavior along a continuum of consciousness ranging from deep coma to the basic orientation. Using precisely this approach, Tesdale and Janet produced a scale which is still very much popular, that is Glasgow Coma Scale, and it was used very much frequently during the corona period. I'm sorry, this today this laptop is creating a lot of problem to speak to new slide. Yes, I got it. See here, there is a scale. I open, and it has been given three criteria of consciousness, unconsciousness being used by in this Glasgow scale, coma scale. I open, then if the patient is spontaneously opening the eyes, then he has been given a score of 4. If it is opening eyes to the speech, then is given the score of 3. Or when he is in pain, he is opening the eyes, and then is given the score of 2. And if is not responding at all, none reflexes on eyes, so it has been given a score of 1. Now, verbal responses, they have been categorized in 5. If the patient is well oriented, the score is given 5. Confused, 4. Inappropriate, 3. Incomprehensible, 2. And no response, no verbal response, then given a score 1. Best motor response, again having 5 categories. Obey commands, 5. Localized pain, 4. Flexion, when extending, and extension to pain, 2. And none, 1. So this way, Glasgow scale is very efficiently, very effective in predicting the state of the coma, so that necessary action can be taken. In addition to rankings, it is possible to compute a single overall score that is something more than an ordinal scale, although less than the true interval level measurement. Same on the Glasgow scale, we are talking about it. If numbers are attached to the ranking, say for eyes open, a coding of none, 1, to pain 2, and so on, as we have seen just now, then the numbers for the rated level of each subscales can be added. We know that if I go back, we find that the maximum score of 5 is in the motor response, 5 is in the verbal, and 4 is in eye open. So maximum score is 14 and lowest score is 3. So we can assess accordingly by these numbers what is the level of comma or unconsciousness or orientation. Now, this is the first method of scaling which we have seen, that is method of equal appearance or experts ranking. Now we are going to talk about the well-known skill by the great statistician, psychometrician of the centuries, that is Thurston. Thurston's actual methodology was of constructing equal appearing intervals in somewhat complex and statistical written, but the underlying logic is easy to explain. Actual method is very complicated, and lots of statistics has been used by Thurston to evolve this method of equal appearing. We need not to, as a test developer, we need not to go under those details, but we had to understand something about the equal appearing, and lots of the scale in psychology are using this method of equal appearing. To illustrate the method, the steps involved in constructing a scale of attitudes, say for X. Now, this is usually being used for assessing the attitude. So, attitude for X, that's any institute, church, temple, mosque, gurdwara, or any other educational institute, social institutes, or our institute of marriage, or all those things. X, I'm putting X or S below. Now, what are the steps? Let me see. First, collect as many true false towards statements as possible, reflecting a variety of positive and negative attitudes towards X. We had to collect as much items as possible. It had happened that there had been more than 1,000 items collected by Thurston to come to 500 final items for assessing attitude towards the church. Now we are giving two extreme examples here. I feel that X services give me inspiration and help me to live up to my best during the following week. This is one statement where the respondent has to give true or false response. Another response, another item state is, I think that X seek to improve a lot of worn out dogmas and medieval superstitions. Now, this is another item. Now, by giving true false, we can understand the direction of the attitude by saying if true or saying false to any item. Now, after this step, the next step goes, we have collected so many statements, and we will select 10 or some more known experts. Suppose in case of attitude towards any religious center, so we take some celebrities in the field or social workers who can select the statements to determine the degree of their favorability or unfavorability. What is that? These judges are asked. We have already collected statements. Now we are asking these judges to show the degree of their favorability or unfavorability towards X. And these judges are requested to sort out these statements into 1 to 11 categories, from extremely favorable to extremely unfavorable. Or sometimes we take extremely unfavorable to extremely favorable. Depends upon the test developer. Judges are told to disregard their own biases and to regard the 11 categories as equidistant. This is, remember, this is very important point in test construction when we are asking the judges to categorize the statements into either of the 11 categories in Thurston scale, that they shall not look at their own biases, their own beliefs, own values about the statements. Simply, they have to consider that all 11 items are 11 categories are equidistant, because we are thinking about equal interval scale. So the distance between 1 and 2 is similarly as distance between the 10 and 11. So when judges are told that way, the chances of biases goes minimized. The next step is coming after the judges have completed the evaluation process. The mean favorability rating from 1 to 11 and standardization of each item is determined. Two things have to be done. Say for first item, if average rating is, as mentioned here, is 9.2. That means going towards the unfavorability. Of course, the rating of this is the average rating of the 10 judges or more judges. But each judge may differ from one's rating. So there is need of calculation of the standard deviation also. This variation can be assessed through standard deviation. And as we know, standard deviation refers to the ambiguity. Items with large SDD are therefore dropped. If the standard deviation of any item is high, then it shall be considered an ambiguous item, and that item shall be dropped. In this way, the final scale item will be able to differentiate between the properties of the attitude being measured, that who is favorable or unfavorable. Now, lastly, person who take the attitude scale are asked to mark all the statements with which they agree. Their score is determined by averaging the scale values of those items endorsed. Now, there are 11 categories, 1 to 11. Now, the subject, the respondent which we want to, whose attitude we want to assess, we'll ask them, him or her, to put his agreement that particular statement is equivalent to, or it is measuring, or say his attitude is at this level. At one he is he is favoring, he is strongly favorable, or he is strongly unfavorable, or in between there is a ranking from 2 to rating from 2 to 10. And this way we can get his attitude score, and that attitude score will be telling us about his favorability or unfavorability or intermediate situation in regard to the attitude being measured. Now, another Thurston also use another method also. Then that is method of absolute scaling. Actually, method of absolute scaling is used to find differences among different age groups. Here we are preparing a test or a scale and being administered to different age groups. And this way we can understand the item difficulty. Let's have for simple example, you understand that. If we are giving one example, 109 divided by 9 to a class 1 student, he may find it difficult. For a class 5 student, he will easily solve the problem. So the absolute item difficulty varies to different age groups of the test takers. And this is the main focus of the Thurston about proposing the method of absolute scaling. This scaling is a set of common items being administered to two or more age groups. The relative difficulty of these items between any two age groups serve as the basis of marking a series of interlocking comparisons for all items and age groups. The students of the psychology, they know that we prepare norms and age norms, education norms, grade norms, what we call it, grade norms. So how we are preparing with this absolute scaling method, where we have to know that if a test is there and if it's given to a student of class 1, what will be the average performance of class 1 that? And what will the average performance of class 5 or a class 10? Or maybe continuous class 1, class 2, and class 3. That way, we can provide the norms for the test also. The relative difficulty of these items between any two age groups serves as the basis for marking a series of interlocking comparisons for all items in all age groups. One age group serves as the anchor group. Now, just like that, in a scale, suppose we are preparing a scale for intelligence and looking at the taking suppose some items of the Binet scale as has been done earlier, and we find that on a particular item the age of particular 3.5 years are scoring 0. When then that 0 score is showing that difficulty level that the children of this age group will score 0, but their age will be 3.5 years. So we have to settle on one anchor group where the score is 0, so that we can have a comparison for the onward age groups. One age group serves as the anchor group. Item difficulty is measured in common units such as standard deviation units of ability for the anchor group. Whatever the standard deviation is observed on the sample of the anchor group, standard deviation serves as a degree. That suppose in this I given the example 3.5 years, and suppose standard deviation is 5. So it will go that this suppose 0, then score 5 will indicate the age of 4.5 years. This way we can calculate the age difference norms. This method is widely used in group achievement and aptitude testing. Now, most of we psychologists are depending on Likert scale because it is very easy and easy to develop, easy to administer, easy to draw conclusions. This is a scale which goes with dichotomous responses, agree, disagree, approve, disapprove, continuum. I don't say that, I'm sorry to say dichotomous, but two polar things, strongly agree and strongly disagree, strongly approved, strongly disapprove. But there is a continuum of that. And we can measure attitude towards any X membership might read that. Now, I'm giving here an example. Just suppose we want to assess the attitude of the respondent towards X membership. We can make items, the earlier items also that we have taken in the first that X services give me inspiration and help me to live up to my best during the following week. Now, this 5 skill as Likert has proposed, the 5 responses are there: strongly agree, agree, undecided. I'm sorry, here there is a missing by typographical mistake, disagree, and then strongly disagree. There are 5 scales, 5-point scale. Now, on the basis of this, depending on the wording. Now, what is the depending on the wording? Is whether the item is positive or whether the item is negative. I don't like school. Then this is a negative item. If somebody is saying strongly agree, that means his attitude towards school is negative, very low. Then a score of 1 is given to this item. And if he says strongly disagree, then strongly disagree will be given the score of 5. So scoring goes from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. From strongly disagree to strongly agree. Or strongly agree to it, then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But suppose the item is positive. Say, I love going to school. And he says strongly agree. So 5. And strongly disagree goes to score 1. So depends upon the item, whether it is a positive item or a negative item, a scoring of the given is being provided in the reverse order. Likert assigned a score of 5 to these extreme responses, 1 to the opposite, and 2, 3, 4 to intermediate response. The total score is obtained by adding the score from individual item. Now, there are suppose 40 items in the Likert scale. Normally, we consider that 20 to 30 items are enough. So, if we take it 30 items, so 30 items scoring, it goes highest 150 and the lowest will be the 30. We are adding the scores on each of the item and summing up and giving the final score towards this attitude, showing its direction towards favorability or the unfavorability. And that is why we are summing up. And that's why this Likert scale is also known as the summative scale. Now, Guttman scale. Guttman has proposed a nice concept, and he has prescribed some statements, just like Beck has given in his Beck has used. We all are aware of the Beck depression is inventory, and this is based on the Guttman scale. Why we say Guttman scale is if a person is showing endorsement to a particular item, it means he is agreeing towards the milder items also. That is the basic concept of the Guttman. That is here. Thus, if the examiner knows an examinee's most extreme endorsement to the continuum, it is possible to reconstruct the intermediate responses as well. Guttman scales are produced selecting items that fall into an ordered sequence of examinee endorsement. Here is very important thing that the statements which are given, it are in the ordered sequence. That may be higher to lower or lower to higher. Back in Guttman type of scaling to use Guttman type of scaling to produce the individual items of the Beck depression inventory. For example, the Beck items are as below. One item says that about the sadness, I occasionally feel sad or blue. I often feel sad or blue. I feel sad or blue most of the time. I always said and can't stand it. Now, if you will observe this thing, the first item is showing occasionally said, then often said, then most of the time said, then so said that he cannot stand to it. Gradually from item 1 to item 4, we find that the severity of depression is going higher. So what is Gutman's concept is that if a person is putting his endorsement on the 4th item, I am always sad and can't stand it. So we agree that we understand that he also feels sad most of the time, or he feels sad often sad, or he is occasionally. It may be, but he is in so sadness that he cannot stand. Means that is his depression level is quite high. Instead, if a person who is saying I often feel sad or blue, it includes his thing that I occasionally feel sad or blue. That is the Gutman's concept. Now, another method of scaling is method of empirical king. Method of empirical king. Now, so far, whatever the scales we have discussed, Thurstons, Likert, Gutman, they are giving some authoritative statement of the experts and selecting the ordering of the items. Here, the respondent on whom the test is to be administered is not taken into consideration while test construction procedure is going on. But method of empirical king using this important aspect, and it is that is being said that it is also possible to construct measurement scales based entirely on empirical consideration devoid of theory of expert judgment. Theory or expert judgment. In the method of empirical king, test items are selected for a scale based entirely on how well they construct a criterion group from the normative sample. Now we are taking here two groups. One is criterion group, that is say for measuring scale for measuring depression. So we can take two groups. One is suffering from depression, well diagnosed by the clinicians, psychiatrists or psychologists, and a normative group who is not showing any symptoms of the depression. Normally in personality inventories, which we are using in psychology, we have a true false item inventory, and which is being used this empirical king method. Now what we do, how do we prepare the such inventories, personality inventories, which are mean for measuring depression or other attributes? A carefully selected items experiencing on the group experiencing major depression is gathered to answer the pool of true false question. Says we have 100 items and we are administering on the depression group and asking them to answer true false, true false. This we are getting the responses from the criterion group. Remember, in earlier scale, we were not considering any group or making any criterion or normative group for formation of the development of the test scale. But here in empirical king, we are using this. Then for each item, endorsement frequency of depression group is compared to the endorsement frequency. Similarly, we'll administer on the normal group also, normative group also, who is not suffering from any symptoms of the depression, are not been diagnosed as a depressive patient. So that will be compared. Item which show a large difference in endorsement frequency between the depression and normative samples are selected for the depression scale, keyed in the direction favored by depression subject, true, false. That means at one point we have seen that standard deviation is showing the ambiguous item. Here is the importance that difference between the two groups. We have two groups here, remember. One is criterion group, say here depressive patient group, and others a normative group says who doesn't have any depression. Now their responses, those items which are differing them considerably. Say, I feel sad very oftenly. And a depressive patient will tick it, yes, true. But a normative patient may say, no, I don't feel so. False, it is false. So this item is showing the difference between the depressive patient and the non-depressive patient or a normal group. And this way, those items which are showing a genuine difference in saying true, false in the direction of the depression are being selected in the scale. RAI score on the depression scale is then simply the number of items answered in the keyed direction. Whatever the subject's respondents scores in true or false manner, that is in the keyed direction. Key direction means if a true is showing depression or false is showing depression, then that is keyed direction. Because we are measuring depression, so this is key direction, and the score will indicate the level of the depression among the respondents. Now, another is rational scale construction. This is something of internal consistency method, rational scale. That is, a test is rational. If rational is being used, that if test is valid, then all the items shall measure what the whole test is measuring. That means we are trying to hear the essence of the internal consistency. That all the items being included in the test are measuring the same. For example, suppose a test developer desires to develop a new self-report skill for leadership potential. Based on a review of the relevant literature, the researcher might conclude the leadership potential is characterized by self-confidence, resilience under pressure, high intelligence, persistency, assertiveness, and the ability to sense what others are thinking and feeling. Now, the test developer is defining, as we have seen in the earlier step, that test, defining the test. So defining the test here, let's suppose we are preparing a test for the leadership potential. So the developer defined the leadership potential. The person is a good leader if he is self-confident, he is resilient under pressure, he is of high intelligence, has persuasiveness, he is assertive, and he has abilities to empathize. Now, these notions suggest that there's the useful in the assessment of the leadership. These items, these are the useful in assessment of the leadership potential. Now, here are the certain items which are being given below. I generally feel sure of myself. When others disagree with me, I usually just keep quiet. This is, I generally feel sure of myself is a true item for the leadership potential. When others disagree with me, I usually just keep quiet or give in. This is false for the leadership potential. That means if a person is selecting this, endorsing this statement, then it means he doesn't have the leadership potential. I believe that I am distinctly above average in intellectual ability. Again, this is a true because in a leadership potential, intelligence is an important element. I often feel that I have poor understanding of how other people react to things. That is false, because a leader shall have an empathy And if a leader is not able to empathize and he's not able to understand the reactions or the feelings of the others, and any person who is endorsing this item, then he does not have the potential of leadership. Contrast, who is endorsing, not endorsing this item, and then we can say that he is having leadership potential. My friend would probably desire me as a, describe me as a strong, forceful person. Now, this is what we require in then, and if it is true for me, then I'm having a leadership potential. But if I say false, then I'm not having the leadership potential. Then true and false of after each statement indicate the rationality key direction for the leadership potential. Now, this scale, when we prepare this sub items, it is being administered on a large sample, similar to the target of the group for which we are preparing this. Suppose we are preparing leadership potential for the college student, then this scale initial item shall be administered on the students. Faster, if the scale is designed several hundred college students, that is more than 500. Cross section means we have two sections of select the sample, longitudinal and one is cross. So it is not possible to select the longitudinal sample here. So we select a cross section that is of the same, say suppose we are taking 12 class students. So we'll take 12 class students. Sorry, college students mean they are the graduate students. So we'll take all graduate students. That is the cross section of the sample, sample. And we'll administer this on a larger number, more than 500. As I said that sometimes it is being administered on 3000 or so. The next step is in a rational scale construction is to correlate scores on each of the preliminary items with the total score on the test for all the subjects in a tryout sample. Now, this 500 subjects are respondents are responding to the item, each item, each say item of the scale. And by adding the scores, we get a final test scores of the particular respondent. And this correlation is being obtained. This, that is response in terms of true, false, or approve, disapprove, and items and the scores. Now, here we find a very specific thing, which is not in regular phenomena, that we have got two sets of the scores. One is in true, false, that is dichotomous, and another is in a total score, that is on continuous variable. We know if we have got both continuous variable, we have normal sample, and then we can apply product moment correlation coefficient, that is R. But here in the case of this rational, we find that we have got two sorts of scores. One is dichotomous, one is arbitrarily assigned to answer corresponding to the scoring key and 0 to the alternative. Then we understand that we cannot apply the R directly, Pearson's R, we cannot apply here because Pearson R demands a condition that the score shall be both the variables, that is X and Y, between which we are establishing correlation shall be in the continuous variable. Here it is not there. On one variable it is dichotomous and another variable it is the continuous. Another variable here is total score and the another is the responses true or false on each item. So at the time we are left with the option find by serial coefficient. You all must be knowing that find by serial. There is another method when we have such type of categories. By serial is calculated when the bifurcation on one variable is when both the groups means the group on which dichotomous is maintained is, suppose we have a data, then it runs on the continuous scale. And find by serial coefficient is computed when the dichotomous variable cannot be on the continuous variable, like just like in the case of here, we have true and false. There is no another continuity. Either item will be responded in true or it will be responded as false. So that there is no continuity. So we go for the point by serial correlation. And remember this thing, that any item which has got weak correlation point by serial or reversal, that is negative correlation, they are not of any use to us, because they are not contributing to the assessment direction, or they are not differing between the two groups. So those items which has weak correlation point by serial or negative correlation, they shall be thrown out, they shall be rejected to measure the leadership potential, as here in the case. Now, what is the normal phenomena which we observe is that up to half of the initial items might be discarded. It is a normal experience. If you are initially selecting a sample of 100 items, it is most probably that 50 items will be rejected, will be discarded. Here only, if a large proportion of items initially discarded, the researcher might recalculate the item total correlation based upon the reduced item pool to verify the homogeneity of the remaining item. Now, if such cases, if we have a very lesser number of the items left, again we have to administer the new pool of the items to estimate the homogeneity of the items, and accordingly the need of that, we can again prepare and again going through the whole process of constructing the items. The items that survive the iterative procedure constitute the leadership potential scale. Those items which are left, they are in the final form of the scale. Now, as has been emphasized in the topic of the today's discussion, that is constructing the test items, constructing the items. Before, one thing I also want to say that selecting the items, what type of item we shall select? They are based on the true, false. They may be on multiple choice. There's now a recent trend, because true, false and multiple choice got one big difficulty, that is of the guess. And that guess, if true, false, then we can consider that 50% of the chance of guess. And in multiple choice, if an item is selected, it may be possibility that it has been selected by guess, 25% probability is there. In that case, we'll see further that we have to suppose select the items with the particular level of difficulty level. Then in those cases of true, false, the item difficulty must be above 0.50. That is 0.63 to 0.75, because 0.50 is already there, that there is no difference then. But in multiple choice, we have 25% of chance, then we may have the lesser difficulty level of the items can be selected. But we have to ascertain ourselves that what type data. Just I was telling, I just missed to go ahead in that direction, is that looking at this guess responses, the psychologists are not taking a different, which has got a very high reliability, almost around 0.96 reliability index. And that is something subjective. Subject in the sense, not true, false. They are not forced items. They are something defining a word, like that, very simple. Define the word. See, hover. Here, one word come, hover. That is moving around. Hover. Now, one in few words is subject, the respondent has to describe. Then he is having his own choice, and there is only one meaning of that. So he can be judged whether his definition is right or wrong. So defining one word is a very good way of forming the items in so many achievement and intelligence test, even in aptitude tests also. Now, whether the item shall be too long or too less, how many items should be there? Contain be there. What range of difficulty should be the item covers? Thus, recently, just now, I was discussing about the depending upon the our purpose, the difficulty level of the items will differ. How many initial items should be constructed? कितने items बनने चाहिए? Which cognitive processes and item domain should be tapped? Now, when we are preparing the test, we must be very sensitive towards the cognitive process and item domains. What items are measuring and what cognitive process behind that must be tapped, so that we can find absolute right items for the right person, age group of the persons. What kind of test items should be used? Test items, again, I said that is a multiple choice, true, false, or defining, or fill in the blanks, something like that. Now here coming, actually what was assigned to me today is testing the item. After we have collected, scaling methods have been given, that is coming final, but how these items are being included in a test or in a scale, all depends upon the testing the item. What the items we have selected, they must meet certain criteria. What are those criteria? There's a lot of statistical process is lying behind it. An item which we have selected in tryout, which is in the tryout pool, may be retained, be discarded, or revised on the basis of whether they are fulfilling the criteria for inclusion of in the final test. And this process in normal course we known as the test analysis. I'm sorry, item analysis. Item analysis, which requires certain things to be done, to be performed, and almost all require statistical processes. And there are various psychometricians who have provided their own way of establishing the index. Here we are not for that purpose stating who has suggested what, but we are going to a generalized statement about item analysis, and that is test developer use item analysis, a family of statistical process to identify the best item. In general, the purpose of item analysis is to determine which item B should be retained, which be revised, and which be rejected. This is the item analysis actually, which is giving the strength to the test developer, confidence that whether the item shall be retained or rejected or be reframed. This purpose is served through the item analysis. In conducting item analysis, the developer might make use of item now look at the criterion which was I'm talking about are this: item difficulty index, item reliability index, item validity index, item characteristic curve, and index of item discrimination. Most of the tests are using difficulty index, discrimination index, reliability index, and validity index. So far, item characteristic curve is, though it's very useful, and Nunley is a node psychometrician, has emphasizes importance, but still it is being debated whether we shall use item characteristic curve for selecting the item. But we are going to discuss about it also. Let me see. First is item difficulty index. The term item difficulty for, I take 1 minute that this particular thing is coming on the screen. I want to get it removed. Give me few minutes for that. Pooja, सुन तो बेटा. वो ऊपर का नहीं जा रहा है, वो पढ़ने में बड़ी दिक्कत हो जाती है. ये चीज जो है. Just wait, I'm sorry.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, please.
So there's a question in the chat box.
Yeah,
Sir, the question is, sir,
Yes.
I recently am validating one famous scale for
just a
Indian
just a minute. Just a minute. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay, I was not able to hear you. Now speak. What do you want to, sorry, what do you want to speak? Ask me.
Yes, sir. So the question is, recently I am validating one famous scale for
Yes,
Indian population in representative sample.
okay,
But my results of exploratory factor analysis are different
Okay.
from original scale.
okay,
However, my confirmatory factor analysis goodness of fitness are excellent. What
Okay.
can I conclude?
Mm-hmm. Now, if goodness of fit is there, okay, so you can select the items from the original scale. And the norms which are applicable on the original population will also be on the Indian population too. If goodness of fit is there.
Excuse me. Sir,
Yes. Yes, any question?
Sir, basically, the previously scale has been developed in US populations, and the all the exploratory factor analysis and confirmatory are suggesting for only 2 dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
When I analyze, the exploratory analysis are like providing me three different dimensions, not 2 dimensions.
Okay.
When I analyze the confirmatory factor analysis on 2 dimensions and with 3 dimensions,
Mm-hmm.
goodness of fit indices are excellent in 3 dimensions, not in the 2 dimensions. Then
Okay.
conclude, sir.
Then this is the reason, because you yourself has said that the reason is the cultural variations.
Okay.
Okay. And what is our purpose is to develop a test for our population. That means from where we are going to collect the data. Then if goodness of fit is coming on 3 dimensions, then we must go ahead with the 3 dimension instead of the original 2 dimensions. And factor analysis is the point where it helps us establishing the reason for 3 dimensions instead of 2 dimensions. We need not to adhere to the 2 dimension as in the original US scale. Always remember that I'll just tell you my own experience. Even though they say at that level we have some culture fair test, like culture fair intelligence scale developed by Kettle. Now, when since long I had interest in that scale and I used that scale in my PhD also, I found that whatever the age was coming according to the original scores conversions into age group, I found that maximum of Indian students were coming below average. It shocked me a lot because the personal experience telling that the particular person is very talented, and on other tests of the intelligence he is showing high, and on culture fair, because I needed to use that thing, paper pencil test, so I found that most of the subjects are going below. So I developed the norms for the Indian population. That what does it mean by, suppose a score is 10 and showing age of 3.5 years, then it may be for the US, but in our case, it may be 5 years. So what is the importance of the norms? And when we are going constructing the items and applying factor analysis, the purpose is that only that the population on which we are administering is dispersing on what dimension and what extent. So in that case, in your case, as you are telling it, it is better that you adhere to the 3 dimension instead of the original 2 dimensions. That will serve the purpose. Otherwise, it will be a misfit test for us. I hope you are understanding the thing. Hello? Hello? Are you listening me?
Yes, I understand, sir. Yes.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Now, this is first and yes. Any question?
Sir, actually, we're running short of time. The permission for the Zoom meeting has been till 12.
Okay. So what is this the time now? I'm not knowing the time.
11:52.
Is it already 12?
10 minutes to 12.
Okay. So I'll simply go fast. Okay. Item difficulty index. That means how much difficult is that? We have tests where we need in achievement test or intelligence test, we need aptitude test, we need to ascertain item difficulty. Then there is a item reliability. Remember that.
Sir, I'm sorry I'm disturbing you. Sir, if you could conclude so that maybe we could have a couple of questions from the participants
Okay.
after the end
Then
of the
which
session.
I told you
We
this
just have
thing,
8 more
let's
minutes
start
left.
running fast. Item reliability index, then item validity, which makes us that we are selecting valid test. This is something. Then item discriminant, whether the high scorer and the low scorer on the whole test are being differentiated by the each individual item. That is known as the item discrimination index. And this is all. Then reprise the best item which is the best item? Depends upon the purpose of the test developer, what he wants to measure. Then he can, some criterion may be useful for one and another may be for another. And then this is the revising the test, and this requires so many steps to revise the whole test, which requires certain considerations which are being mentioned here. And the last is the publishing the paper. Now, please ask them a question. I'm sorry, I could not complete within the stipulated period. Now you can ask me.
Sir, uh, just- the participants were requesting for the PPT if that could also help them for the slides that
Oh, sure, sure. I will, I'll ask Dr. Pomila Singh to provide you. I'll send the PPT to her on email and you can collect from her. Okay? Hello,
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
because I need response. Yes, any more? You'll be getting very soon. Kindly ask Promila madam to send me WhatsApp on WhatsApp her email ID. Okay, so that I can send it. Promila madam. Hello. Okay, I'll get it. You can see that you note down my number. You can send anybody's email ID. I can send on that.
Okay,
Who is a
okay.
group representative? to send. My number is 9329.
It's okay, I will give them the number, don't worry about it.
Acha, okay, fine, fine, fine. Then, Promi,
And
I will
thank
send
you,
you
thank you
the.
so very much for a so comprehensive, including all the details. It's very good for the students. And
You're visible here.
I'm really sorry for this interference due to.
so thank you very much, Dr. Advani.
Yes, thank you.
Hello.
Ah,
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So
Bye.
with this, we are concluding this morning session. You want to say something? Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
How are you, sir?
Yes, fine.
Sir, we are waiting for our professor, head of institutions. Ma'am will shortly will join, and then
Okay.
start your introductions and the presentation.
Okay then. Thank you.
थोड़ा से होल्ड कर लो फिर एक दो
अच्छा
हाँ ये Hello.
Yes. Good afternoon, madam.
Afternoon, sir, and most welcome to this session. We are very happy that you accepted our request, invitation, have this lecture, and we are happy to have you here with us. So hope we will have a good interaction on the topic you are going to speak. So over to Jennifer for your formal introduction.
Thank
Please.
you. Thank you, ma'am. Dear participants, am I audible now? Okay. Dear participants, welcome to the last session of our Friday National Workshop on Research Methodology in Social Sciences. For this session, we have Dr. Ashok Kumar Saha with us. He is currently working as a professor at the Department of Psychology, Jagannath University, Dhaka, Bangladesh. He has been implementing a project titled Advanced Teaching Learning in Psychology, ATLP, and HEQEP Supplementary Project as a sub-project manager of HEQEP UGC World Bank. He was awarded DPhil, that is Doctor of Philosophy in Psychology, from the UGC Center for Advanced Study in Psychology, Department of Psychology, Allahabad University, India, in 2002. He had received the centrally awarded doctoral fellowship by Indian Council of Social Sciences Research, ICSSR, Ministry of HRD, Government of India. Dr. Saha is internationally known, accomplished teacher, researcher, educationist, and a development worker in the area of psychology, management, and development issues. He has contributed in different national and international journals and published 85 research articles. He is also a reviewer of different national and international journals, has authored 5 books, published several chapters in major volumes, presented 50 research papers in national and international conferences, and received 25 research projects so far from different organizations. That is World Bank, HEQEP, MOST, MOE, UGC, SSRC, and ICSSR, etc. His major interest areas include advanced social and applied psychology, industrial and management psychology, human resource development, educational psychology, clinical and counseling psychology, and research methodology, as well as other interdisciplinary areas. I would like to invite Sir to take the session on report writing as per APA, mastering the art of writing research reports in accordance with the American Psychological Association APA style guidelines. Sir, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your invitation in this international workshop on research methodology conducted by Amity University. And it is the last lecture, I think, for this workshop. But I think it is the most important part of this workshop because whatever during our long research journey, report writing is a final things you have to submit for the evaluation, particularly if it is a thesis writing or any other scientific writing. So report writing is a very important thing because for last 2, 3, 4 years, what you have done during your research, you have to capitalize your whole knowledge in a report form, which we usually call a thesis. And thesis is actually for the purpose of the senior people, senior teachers, supervisors, and external for evaluation purpose. What you have done in 4 or 5 years, you have to write in such a way so that they will able to evaluate you properly or exactly what you are trying to say, because you will not be there with the report. So if the report is very simple, report is very clear, then it will be understandable for every academician, as well as we as a academician, we have our professional bodies like APA, American Psychological Association, has given some instruction, which is we call APA guideline to write a thesis or to write a scientific writing or to write a research paper for to publish in an international or national journals, because we think that there is a consensus to write a thesis paper so that every academician globally will able to understand exactly what we used to expect from the scholar. So that's why APA guideline is very relevant and very appropriate to follow in thesis writing workshop. So there are different parts of the thesis writing. First of all, we are interested to select a research title. So research title is very important, and you have to clearly written the research title. The title must show the relationship between the variables, and it will be quite understandable what is your dependent variable, what is your independent variable, and a research title should not be more than 10 to 15 words. No question mark at the end of the title, no full stop at the end of the title is permissible. And first alphabet of each word would be capital letter, except prepositions. And we used to work on a broad title, or sometimes we are very much specific. We use very specific title for which we are very much interested. So both can be there, any type of there. No abbreviation would be used in the title. Let me share one of my very small presentation here. So I think it is now visible to you. And so first slide is about the research title. And then there are some initial pages, which is very important to remember when you write a thesis. Initial pages like cover page 1 and cover page 2. In cover page, we used to write a title of the thesis, as well as we also write the which purpose this thesis has been written and submitted for evaluation, the affiliation of the researcher, and who is the supervisor of the scholar, and the affiliation of the supervisors, all that. And then we use also use a cover page, which is the second page used inside the cover page. And then we use content page, summary of the tables, summary of the figures we used in the whole thesis, and abbreviation we use, like APA. We should not write APA in the first attempt. We should write American Psychological Association, and then we can use APA throughout the project, or like obsessive compulsive disorder. every time it looks bad. So we should use abbreviation in the text, but not in the title. In the title, for thesis title or any title, we should explain the abbreviation. And then summary of the tables. The tables which we have used in the thesis, we should give a summary of the tables and its page number. And then we also used to put summary of the figures. You can also include some of the figures in your thesis. So you have to give a summary in one page, summary of the all figures you have reported in your thesis with the page number. And abbreviation used. There are a lot of abbreviation we used to use because, APA, OCD, and many other terms we use in the text. So you have to give an abbreviation page in the initial, among the initial pages. Then you should give an acknowledgement. During the whole research journey, you have worked with your own, as well as you also get help of your supervisor, help of your colleagues, help of your fellow researcher, and your student. You can get help from many other people, particularly the participant or respondents who participate in your study. So you have to acknowledge them properly. You can also acknowledge your supervisor and the other faculty members in your department. And then declaration. Declaration is a page in which you have to say that you are declaring that you have done this research on this particular title, and you have done in your own under the supervision of your supervisor. And this part of or partial or full part is never been published anywhere or never been never done by any researcher so far So you have to declare all this. And then supervisor will also give one certificate that this to certify that so and who has done his research on this particular topic and been under my supervision, and this constitutes his own work, and now I am recommending the thesis for evaluation. So these are the things, initial pages we used to report in the thesis paper. Then we used to write an abstract. Abstract is the whole summary of your work. Your work, maybe you have written in 200, 300 pages. Abstract is the things.
Excuse me, sir. Sir, sorry to interrupt. Could you please the PPT on the slideshow mode?
Yeah, I have showed in this through slide sharing.
Slideshow mode, sir.
It is not visible to you?
Sir,
Page,
you
full
could
page,
go to the slideshow option.
full page. Do you want full page?
Sir, besides home, the sixth option is for slideshow.
Okay, I understand.
Sir, also besides the zoom in, zoom out, there is, yes, sir, from current slide you can select. Yes, sir, it's visible. Thank you.
Okay. So, is this visible?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
But it is not visible to me. That's what.
Just give us a minute, we'll try to resolve it.
Is this visible to you?
It is
Now?
visible to us, sir.
Okay then, thank you. So abstract is a very important things to report. usually, when we used to submit a research paper in any national and international journals or index journals, then they have their own guideline to write an abstract. Not only abstract, but the whole paper, they have their guidelines to how to read, how to write a manuscript for that particular journal. But for APA, they have also their standard guidelines to write an abstract. It is a summary of the whole research you have done for last 4 or 5 years, but it can be extended up to 400 words. That means it is initially, we have said, usually 150 to 250 words for journals, and for thesis, it can be extended up to 400 words, because in thesis, we use some extended abstract for to represent your thesis properly. For journal articles, please follow the instructions of that particular journal. An abstract includes every parts of the thesis in brief. That means you have to define the variables. You have to say the sample. You have to say your plan, to report your results, and you have to report the way you have discussed your findings. So, and even we also write some of the implications of this particular study. So it is very important. And then introduction chapter. In introduction, this part is also very important. Every part of your thesis is very important for the readers, because when readers will read your thesis, you will be not there with him. So it must be very clear. And if you know the steps, then you will be able to write a research report independently and with the under the supervision of your supervisor. So first of all, in introduction chapter, you have to define your problems, and then you have to write a section which is called literature review. That means you have to review all the related studies which is done earlier in this particular area. It's maybe the area you are doing work for, we are working now, but maybe the concept is initially studied by 40 or 30 years before. So during these 40 years, what are the studies has been done and published in different journals? You have to write a literature review part based on these publications. And then you have to define the variables you are interested in your study. What do you want to actually see? Suppose you are interested to see the impact of stress and anxiety on mental health. So you have to define all these for your particular study. Which type of mental health you are interested for, what type of anxiety you are talking about, what type of stress you are talking about, you have to define them clearly. And then you have to give the rationale of the study, why you are interested for this research. There may be a different way of interest of you for this research, maybe theoretical interest, maybe practical interest, maybe some that the study which has not been done before, so you have some kind of interest to conduct this study. And then you have to write a research question. If you do not have any research question, what type of answer you will expecting? So that is why we need to have a research question for which we will do this research for the 2 years or 3 years or the whole time period. And then we have to give a framework of the study. In the framework of the study is a kind of relationship between variables and explanation of variables and what type of relationship you are interested to look for. And based on these assumptions, you have to write a diagram, or you can put it in a chart. Then the next phase is the objective. What is your objective? What are your objective in this research? What are you interested to see? And then you have to write hypothesis. Hypothesis in any social research, we are trying to prove the hypothesis. That means based on the earlier researches, based on the findings of the earlier studies, we can assume that this type of result we may obtain at the end of the research. So this is called hypothesis, and the hypothesis, when you will write an hypothesis, then you have to give the justification of this hypothesis. Why you have taken this hypothesis? So you have to justify yourself based on your earlier experiences from different findings of the research. You have to give appropriate explanations or justification of that particular hypothesis. And then ethical approval. Ethical approval nowadays is very important to obtain from the appropriate authority. Every university, I think every university have our ethical approval committee for the research, because we social scientists used to conduct many research, may be harmful for some people or may have harm for some animals or some human being. So sometimes we need to work with females, sometimes we work with children. So we need ethical approval is very important, and you need to obtain this ethical approval from the respective authority of the university or any other authority. That is very much important for the publication of your research paper at the end of your research journey with good international journals, because unless you have ethical approval, they will not accept your article for publication. So that's why it is very important. And if you have ethical approval, that means what you are doing, what you have done is ethically standard. So you have not done anything wrong in your research. There is no scope there to do anything wrong. Then we have our methodology. In methodology chapter, we used to cover several things step by step. First of all, we should write a research design. And every section of your thesis, like methods, at the very beginning of the methods, you have to write what are the things you have discussed in this section. So you have to cover all these things in maybe in one para or a half page or 1 page. So that will give you some overview about the methodology chapter, the way you have arranged different things in your research, in your thesis. So first of all, research design, you have to say which statistical design you have followed for your analysis. And then you have to say about the participants who used to participate in your study, in your survey, in your experiment, or in your qualitative analysis, qualitative study. So participant, you should also need to mention about the locations of that participant, from where they have participated, and location of the study. Sometimes we used to conduct our study in different parts. Myself, during my research, I conduct cross-cultural research in India and in Bangladesh. So in Bangladesh, I conduct data collection from a particular district, which is called Jessore. And in India, I also conduct my study in a particular district of West Bengal, that is called now Krishnanagar district. So these are the two regions, culturally same, but in Bangladesh, Muslims are majority, and in Indian part, there Hindus are majority. So it is a cross-cultural study. So I had a lot of opportunity to compare the results between these two communities. So it is a very interesting study in that way. And then you need to explain your sample. How many sample you have? If you have one sample, maybe very big sample, or sample size is also another thing. Sample size means how many participants have participated in your study. So there are a lot of statistical formula to compute sample size. So sample size, you have to remember, if you are doing any survey research, the amount of participant or sample size, if the sample size is bigger, then your result, precision of your result will be high. And the sample size, if the sample size is small, then your precision of the findings will be less precision. Or that means there will be a lot of error, sampling error. And sampling technique, the way you have choose the participants, in what way? There are a lot of sampling procedure, probability sampling procedures, non-probability sampling procedure. The appropriate technique you have to explain that these are the sampling technique you have used in your study. And then sample size I have said already. And then measurement technique. How you have measured your variables. That means measurement, or earlier we used to say material to be used. Material to be used are like in a material used. Material used. Which material we use for this study? An instrument. Or we sometimes we say scale. What scale we use to measure the particular variables? So you have to explain all the variables properly. All the variables means all the scales properly. You have to write what type of scale you have used, what is the name of this scale, how many items are there, what about the rating procedure, and what is the scoring procedure of it. You have to say the validity of your scale. You have to say the reliability of your scale, and you have to say who has developed this scale. That means you have to give proper references from where you get this measurement. Sometimes we have new variables to need to study. In that case, we used to develop our scale. So you have to explain, you have to develop your scale properly, following International Test Commission guideline. I mean, as far as like as APA. APA has some guidelines to write a thesis report, and International Test Commission also have appropriate guidelines how to develop a scale, how to develop your test to measure some variables in your study. So explain the demographic variable. Demographic variable sheet we usually use to collect the information, the fundamental information about the respondents, like their name, age, sex, family income, educational qualifications, and their residential background. Because at the end of the analysis, we may be dissatisfied about the result based on our hypothesis. So we have we have to explain why the findings are like this. So you have your age, you have your sex, you have your family income, you have your educational qualifications, and you have your residential background. All these are become variables. So on the basis of this demographic variable, you have opportunity to analyze your data and to try to find some reasons of such results. So you can explain that way. So a demographic information is very important to collect properly. And description of the skills to be used, I have already said it, scoring procedure, validity, reliability of the skill. And then once your methodology is okay up to this point, that means you have appropriate design, you know about your participants, you know about the location of the study, sampling and sample procedure technique, sample size, you have ready scale to be used. So now before going to the final study, you should conduct a small study, which is we call pilot study. Pilot study is very important because once you have done is a experiment on 600 people, and if you find that your scale is not working or scale is not appropriately working, then you will not get the expected results. So it is the chance to conduct a pilot study before go to a final study, because pilot study you can conduct on very small sample size, maybe 30, 40, or 20. And then you analyze the data through SPSS or any other software, statistical software. If you find that your hypothesis, you have the result is as per your hypothesis, and it already made the objectives of your study, then you go for the final study. And if it is everything is okay, then in the final study, when you complete your data collection, you can also have opportunity to merge your data which you have collected during your pilot study. You can merge with them in the final study. So you have opportunity. So whatever labor you will give, it will not be wasted. So, and then you have to explain the procedure. Procedure is a very important section as well. You have to explain the way you have collected your data from the respondents. So maybe sometimes we used to get permission from the consent form, which a consent form from the respondent, from each respondent, that they are agreed to work or they are agreed to give their opinion for this study, which maybe take for 1 hour and half hour, and they will help me as a respondent. So this type of consent is very much important because they may be busy. So I cannot force him to give their opinion for my study. So it is a willing process. If they are willing to give their opinion, I will consider them as a respondent in my sample. So this is all about the procedure section. Then results. Sometimes many people, many scholars, we used to do some mistake. We said only result, not result. It must be plural, results. And sometimes we used to write here methodology. But as per the APA, you should write methods that will indicate your methodology. And the same way, we should write results, not result. In this way, you have to write. And before starting writing the result section, you have to make a plan. The initial para of this part of thesis, you can explain what is your plan. The plan, what was your plan before you analyze your data, and the way you have presented your results. Sometimes we have some headings to see the correlation between two variables. So we can give a heading that correlation between anxiety and mental health. So you can give headings, and on these headings, you should write your results. The results section, we used to write only put the tables of the output get from the SPSS. But SPSS, the way SPSS give you results are not the same which is APA has said. APA has given some guideline the way you have to prepare your tables. But the SPSS will give you a different type of table. But if you do not know the t-test, or if you do not know regression analysis, if you do not know analysis of variance, you will not able to understand their table. So for your understanding, you must have good knowledge about the statistical analysis, what we used in our study, particularly to analyze our data through SPSS. So this is very important. We need to know the statistical technique we usually use in our study for data analysis, as well as we need to know the SPSS uh, smoothly so that we can handle our data management. So it is a kind of data management style. Data management is SPSS, or you can use also other software which is available. Assumption test. Assumption test to prove to see the assumption test is what allows us to quickly evaluate which idea might work and throw out of the ideas that would not. So that's why assumption test is very important. Preliminary analysis. Preliminary analysis is key. What is preliminary analysis? Preliminary analysis to see the data which is not normally distribution or not. Every data, every results of our examination. You see, we have our examinations and we have our results at the end of the semester. Whether your results are normally distributed or not. If your results are not normally distributed, then there might be some problem with your question. Maybe if all your students get A plus, is it possible? It's not possible. It is possible if the question is very, very easy. And this is not a good question. A good question must have different type of question with different type of critical value. Some questions may be very hard, some questions moderate hard, some questions are very easy. So on the basis of this type of question, your data, your results of the students will be normally distributed. Unless it is normally distributed, everyone will be get A grade, A plus grade. So that is not the expectation of the teachers. So preliminary analysis means frequency distribution and some mean, mode, median. These are the preliminary analysis. Then main analysis. Main analysis are like t-test, chi-square test, or maybe regression analysis, depending on your relationship you are interested for, and your correlation or multiple regression or analysis of variance or many other statistical tests are there you can use for your study, depending on your design, depending on your sample, depending on your variable you are interested to see, relationship, kind of relationship you wanted to see. Results should be reported in tables as per the APA guidelines. These APA guidelines, APA also gives some guidelines how to write a table. As I said, that the table will generate from the SPSS is not the same what APA has been proposed. I can show you, give me some time so I can show you one sample.
That's the next arrow where your cursor was, the bottom of
Minimize.
the screen.
I want to minimize it.
Yes, sir.
Where?
So do you want to go back to the original PPT?
Minimize. Minimize. I want to
Press
minimize the,
escape.
I want to minimize the slide.
Sir, you may press escape once and check if it gets minimized. Escape button on the top of the keyboard, top
Escape.
left hand side.
Okay.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. Is this visible?
So you are visible to us right now.
No, no. Slide. Oh my God.
So we can see a Word file right now on the screen.
I understand, but this is for another reason, how to write a references section.
Okay.
Okay, I think is it visible? My earlier slide.
No, sir. We can still see the same Word document.
I found some difficulties in showing my slides.
So
Please.
should we ask the IT support to help you?
Now let me try. I will able to do it.
Sir, it shows that you have started screen sharing, but it has not yet been visible to us.
I understand.
So now the PPT is visible.
Okay. Now, actually, I failed to show the others file. I wanted to show you. No problem. So we are here. Now. We are here to discuss about the so we are in data analysis plan. We are talking about the data analysis plan, and then we have to do some preliminary analysis. Preliminary analysis means, as I said, that frequency distribution or mean, mode, median. These are the preliminary analysis, and then the main analysis may be t-test or chi-square test or regression analysis, factor analysis, or maybe analysis of variance. All any type of or correlational method we can use or as a main analysis. And results should be reported in a table as per the APA guidelines. APA guidelines are clearly showed that whenever we arrange tables, how to write a table, how to report a table. Table number 1, and then we have to give one space below, and then we have to write the headings of the table, and headings of the table will be italic. So every time you have to follow the rules as per the APA. I have found many theses from India and from other countries, even in Bangladesh. In many universities, they don't follow the APA style. But once you are an academician, we should follow APA because of our global acceptance. When I will go outside to present my research paper with international academicians, so they will not understand unless we will prepare our presentation as per the APA guidelines. So everyone knows APA guidelines. If you do not follow the APA guidelines, that means your thesis may be good, but it is in your own way you have presented what you have done. So we must very serious about the APA guidelines in every lines, every pages. We have to follow the APA guidelines. If you fail to remember the APA guidelines, you will do some mistake. Seriously, will be taken by evaluator. Evaluator, particularly thesis evaluation, is a very important task. And then summary of the results. You should put summary of your whole result. Maybe you get lot of result. But one thing I can tell you that important things, when you will do your analysis, you will find your findings. So there are some findings which are significant and some of the findings are not significant. If the results are not significant, you should mention that the correlation we obtain from height and weight is not correlation is not very high. So it is a very low correlation. So you don't need to write any other sentence after that. But if it is the correlation is significant, then you can explain why this is significant, why your result is significant. You have to give reasons for that. You have to give support of your results from other findings in the discussion section. So next chapter is discussion. In the discussion section, explain the results here. Following your objectives, following your hypothesis, you have to report discussion section sequence. You have to follow the sequence of your every objective and every hypothesis and explain your result here. But remember, in the results section, whenever you will discuss your results, you have to put your table first, and then you have to explain your results, what you have found in the tables. And here in the discussion, you don't need to write any numerical data, but you can only the result you have found in your table 1 results, you have to say, explain it about the relationship you have get, about the correlation you have found between these two variables. So you have to only explain the results, not the data, not the numerical value here. In the discussion section, you have to prove your hypothesis. You have to, every results, you have every of your objectives and hypothesis, you have to analyze based on your hypothesis. Explain the result logically and find support of the results by findings of the other researchers. Suppose you got a significant results between two variables. Why these two variables are become significant for you? Because you have found a significant result, as well as there are other researchers also find same type of results, which you have to give the references with your support of your results. And then you have to write limitations and suggestions, limitations of the study. In many researchers, they think we should not write limitations too much. Because if you give you the limitation too much, what is the importance of your findings? But honestly, we should write our limitations as well, because everything has some limitations. Every expert has some limitations. Every writer has some limitations. Everyone, we have our limitations. So you can write systematically the limitations of your research. Maybe time frame is a limitation because you have to complete within the time frame. Time is the limitation. Maybe you do not have enough scholarship for your research, or no fellowship for your research. So in that case, financial crisis is a limitation for this study. So you fail to take a lot of samples, big samples. So it is a kind of definite limitations for your study. Or maybe you do not have enough expertise in data analysis. You can admit about your limitations and the suggestions you can put here, what the way you could overcome those limitations and implications of the finding. Why you have done this research? What are the findings you received? What are the use of your research? And sometimes we can recommend that these findings we can use for the policymaker. Policymaker can use this as per their policy of the government or the policy of the NGOs or policy of the other stakeholders, so that findings can be used by different organizations and to solve their very important problems. And then conclusion and future direction of research. Finally, you can conclude your findings as well as you can give some further direction of the research for the other researcher, for your next generation researcher, what they can do. Or researcher can himself do further study, an updated study based on their earlier study. So he can do PhD, he can do postdoctoral, he can do other postdoctoral research after the end of their PhD program. So, and conflict of interest. Conflict of interest are everywhere there. Conflict of interest means, are there anything you have done which is not fair enough? Like I am doing my PhD under the supervision of my uncle. I am doing my PhD under the supervision of my father. It is not appropriate because of the conflict of interest. My father can directly help me in writing a thesis. My uncle can directly help me to, or I should not conduct a research under the supervision of my father's friend. It is also conflict of interest. So we should avoid conflict of interest at different phases of our research. And then another slide is called references. Every part is equally important for writing a research. Arrange all the references alphabetically, A to Z. In the Word file, there is A to Z, so you can arrange alphabetically, just like a dictionary way. And you have to write all the references as per the APA. In APA style, there is a different type of references, has different type of rules to report. Like if you give the references from a book, then you have to write the author's name first name, last name first, and then the abbreviations, and then year of publication, then the title of the book, and then the publisher's name, and then the city of the publication, city of the publishers, and then full stop. And then you have to underline means you have to italic the title of the book. These are the very simple. Once you will able to know how to report, then you will not forget in your life. But APA always do some updates. So you have to know where is the updates. So as a researcher, you have to have a APA guideline. And you have to follow APA guideline every time, because after 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, they are publishing their guidelines, edition 13, edition 14, edition 15, like this. So you have to follow the latest APA guidelines to write your thesis or any journal article to publish in a index journal, Scoopus journal, or very good journal, academic journal. Because the peer reviewer will evaluate your paper based on the guidelines. If you can appropriately accommodate your APA guidelines in your thesis, that means you have the evaluator will not miss anything from your writing. Everything are there. If you forget the APA, then you may forget many things to report, because 4 years, 5 years is a long journey, research journey. If you know the guidelines, you will not miss to report everything in one place. And that even, and let me finish here. So no missing, follow APA style. And there is another way, book references, journal references, and then edited book references, and also references from the newspaper, periodicals, and even you can give references from the unpublished research, a research, PhD research, which has been submitted at the Department of Psychology, Delhi University. If you give some references from that thesis, you also have provision to give the references as an unpublished PhD thesis. So there is a different way to write all these. They have different style to write references. No missing references are allowed. If you give references in your text, you should not miss any references in your references section. It is a kind of crime. You should not do this. If you give references in your text, cite references in your text, you have to write the references in the references section properly. If you do not, then it is a kind of offense for the examiners. Examiners will just evaluate your thesis that you have neglected about the reporting of the thesis. So many references are missing in your thesis. So it is very much, you have to be very much careful. If you do not get any references which you have given in the text, but you have failed to collect the references appropriately, please delete from the text. So this is the advice for everyone. Then appendices. Appendices means the appendix part is also important part, because many reviewer of your thesis, they might be interested about the scale you used, about the questionnaire you used, about the procedure you used. So you should give the in as a appendix 1, appendix 2, appendix 3. Maybe you have used 3 scales. So put here 3 scales. One demographic sheet, you put here as an appendix. If you use Hindi medium questionnaire, then use Hindi medium as well as the the English version of that particular questionnaire. So we always use our own language, the language we use to collect my data, as well as the same English version we prepare for reporting in the thesis. And then there are many universities have their criteria, have their the criteria to publish at least 2 research paper in an index journal before their submission of their PhD thesis. So at the end, in the appendix, you can report those published article, copy of this published article here. So these are the very specific and systematic approach of report writing procedure given by an American Psychological Association, and as a researcher, as a supervisor, as a scholar, everywhere for must even for the undergraduate research, postgraduate research, master's thesis, even MPhil thesis or PhD thesis or postdoctoral thesis, anywhere. Even if you are a psychologist and you are submitting a project, research project for a grant, you have to follow the APA style, because the whole academic community, they know about the APA style of your writing. If you fail to accommodate APA concept in your research, then the reviewers will just underestimate it, that, or maybe the scholar is very much careless about the APA. So it is advisable and to learn APA style properly and to practice properly, and it is a process of practice. Actually, you will not able to a scholar after maybe one research, maybe it will add more and more knowledge about the APA, so that you will be perfect in time. So this is my advice and in my experience during my research tenure. So thank you everyone for listening me, and thank you the coordinator of this seminar and other faculty members of this university, of this department and university as well. So thank you everyone for inviting me to present here in this international workshop on research methodology. Thank you very much. If you have any question, please welcome to many question or queries if you have.
Sir,
So
I have a question, if I may ask. Hello, am
Yes,
I audible, sir?
yes, yes.
Yes, sir. Sir, this was pertaining to literature review. I don't know. Maybe you must have said this, and in case I missed, so I'm asking again. For a PhD thesis, for how many years would it be expected that a scholar considers the researches? Past how many years, sir?
You know, as a researcher, you should know from the very beginning of your area of research. As a researcher, this is expected by the other scholar, that if you are doing a research on a particular area, that means you are the scholar on this particular. Even you know better than your supervisor. Your supervisor will supervise you based on his expertise on research, knowledge, but not that particular area. You as a researcher, you are doing something on a particular topic. You should know that. And as far as reporting is concerned, you should start from the first. You may leave some of the study which may not be relevant for to report here, but you have to update your literature review when you are submitting your thesis. Maybe I will submit my thesis in December 25. So I have to review literature up to that point, up to 25th of December or little before, 24 or 23, like this. So there is no such rules. How many study will review for your thesis. But which is very relevant for your study, you have to report all those study in the literature review section. That is what I understand.
Okay, so actually, if I may elaborate on that question, for example, if the topic is on parenting or if it is on stress, so we know that these are very general terms, and we've had civilizations and civilizations talking about it. Even before research is being conducted, we've had a lot of literature on it in other scriptures as well. So that was something I wanted to understand. For a PhD scholar, what would be the beginning point? Of course, the classic studies will be considered, but apart from that, anything that, let's say, last 30 years, 50 years, or even if, let's say, there is something which we may find 100 years old. So if that can also be considered. So that's where my question
Yeah,
actually was.
I understand your point. Suppose I will do a research on malaria. Malaria is a disease, and malaria, how the way we can protect malaria from malaria. So we should know who is the scientist first who work to protect us from malaria. So we, as a scientist, I should know it. As a PhD student, I should know the ins and everything about the malaria experiment, or the experiment conducted in this area. But whenever I will report my thesis, maybe I will overlook many studies, not will report every studies, but which is relevant and very important. And the beginning of that particular research, we should report it. Beginning is very important, because other people should know from when this type of study has been conducted. At least as a researcher, you should give this information to the audience.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I was checking the chat box. There are no questions further. Yes, definitely the participants have started thanking you for the wonderful session that you've actually taken right now, and mentioned about the APA format in such a crystal clear way. So thank you so much, sir. I would now like to request Dr. Mahendra Kumar to say a few words.
Dr. Mahendra Kumar is not audible. Yes.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. And all researchers and participants and guests. First of all, thank you for joining us. And it's appreciate to the use of these 5 days international workshop of research methodology and social sciences.
Dr.
And
Mahendra
we
sir, you are
gathered
not
to
audible.
which is voice is not coming. Okay, please check. May I audible?
Hello, may I audible?
May I-
Yes.
Okay, so
Okay, so
first of all, thank
first
you
of all, thank
everyone,
you
and
everyone, and
our esteemed guests and dear all participants. First of all, I would like to say a few words regarding the last 5 days, what we did and what was the purpose of the workshop. As we came to the close of these 5 days international workshop on research methodology in social sciences, we gather to celebrate the knowledge and the connections made and the memories created in the last 5 days. Basically, in last 5 days, we invited from the different reputed institutions for the lectures and for the like sharing his knowledge from the different institutions. And the main purpose of this workshop was to like provide the basic understanding in what was the basic natures of the researches. We invited from like reputed institutions like IITs, NITs, and some of the expert from the like CSVTU. And the journey would not have been possible without the tireless effort of our experts, speakers, and dedicated our organizing team and engaged or all the participants. And let's us continue for the next our upcoming session and the research workshop. And thank you again to all the participants and my colleagues and faculty members for helping us to organizing this workshop. And thank you again, sir, for joining us for this wonderful sessions.
Thank you very much. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, for the information.
Pramila ma'am, you're not audible.
Yes, ma'am.
Dear participants, one announcement for all of you. For the certificates, you will receive the e-certificates after a few days on the registered email ID, which will be sent through our department. So we require patience from your end because we have a long list to take care of. And surely, but in a few days, you will receive the certificates. If there are any participants who may have any concerns regarding the e-certificates, they may contact our coordinator, Dr. Mahendra Kumar, in the WhatsApp group that has been created for your communication. So thank you everyone for your participation in today's workshop. We hope today, as in this entire week's workshop, we hope that you found the sessions informative and engaging. Research methodology is a vital skill for any social scientist, and we encourage you to apply the knowledge and techniques you have learned in this week-long workshop in your future research endeavors. Have a great day and the weekend that lies ahead. Thank you.